Major underwriting for A Taste of Louisiana with Chef John Folse was provided by the Baton Rouge Convention and Visitors Bureau. In Baton Rouge, our past is your present. Baton Rouge, authentic Louisiana at every turn. And People's Drugstores, serving South Louisiana for generations. George and Shirley Picu are proud supporters of A Taste of Louisiana with Chef John Folse. And by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting. Our mission is to tell Louisiana's story to the world. And by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism.
Where you have this architecture, history, music.
And the bittersweet cry of the blues.
Especially the blues.
There you go.
How about a dozen?
Red beans and rice.
We rolling, y'all.
We're a nation of immigrants, a country with roots in other soils. Nowhere is that more true than in the country of Louisiana. I'm Chef John Folse, inviting you to tune in to A Taste of Louisiana and a new series dedicated to our food heritage. Louisianians are descendants of 7 primary nations that have influenced every dish we cook today. Welcome to A Taste of Louisiana. Hello, how are y'all doing? Nice to see you. Nice to see you. How you doing, Richard? Good to see you. How you doing, nice to see you. All right, guys. Thank you, good guy. You're a good guy. How are y'all? Hey, man. How y'all doing, everybody? Whew, that's what I like to hear. A lot of excitement. Y'all, thank you so much for being here. I'm Chef John Folse. It's so nice to have you in the kitchen today as we celebrate and continue to search out all of the magnificent, that's what I like, a little extra music over there. Search out all of the great cultures that make the cuisine of Louisiana famous. In fact, our cuisine and culture is so sought out by the rest of the world because of people just like y'all. And thank you so much for being here. Today we're celebrating the cuisine and culture of the English. And many people don't realize that when you think of Louisiana, they think, well, France, Spain, Native American, African, English, where did they come from? Well, we're gonna talk about that a little bit today. So y'all stay in your seats. I have a couple of great dishes for you, and I'm feeding all of you after. So that's just an added plus for putting up with me, okay? There you go. Louisiana's West Feliciana Parish exemplified the traditional Old South. Cotton was king and wealthy families grew from southern soil. Extravagant homes were built. One of these grand dames was Rosedown Plantation. I visited with Mary Thompson, the great-granddaughter of the builder of this home. Mary introduces us to the barrows and the turnbulls and a lifestyle that's, well, gone with the wind. Naturalists have enjoyed the beautiful woodlands of West Feliciana from its earliest days. American artist John James Audubon captured many of his birds of America on canvas while residing at Oakley Plantation in the 1820s. Spanish Governor Galvez named this region Feliciana, meaning happy land, in honor of his wife. The village of St. Francis grew into what is now St. Francisville. This area along the Mississippi River became the largest river port between New Orleans and Natchez. Cotton farming was introduced in the early 1800s. By the 1850s, West Feliciana Parish was home to 38 of the wealthiest plantation owners in the South. The large cotton and sugar cane plantations, coupled with an intelligent, cultured, and hospitable aristocracy, made West Feliciana a prime example of the traditional Old South. The Turnbull and Barrow families, builders of Rosedown Plantation, best exemplified the wealth, tradition, and strong influences of the English settlers. In 1828, Martha Hilliard Barrow married Daniel Turnbull, uniting these two prominent pioneer families.
The Turnbull families came from Scotland. Daniel Turnbull, who built Rosedown's father, John Turnbull, came to this country from Scotland and ended up acquiring a huge amount of property from all the way from Natchez to Mobile, and traded with the Indians. And it was his son, Daniel, of course, who built Rosedown. Daniel's wife, Martha, was a Barrow. Her family had come from England. They were one of the very earliest families to come from England in the 1600s, actually.
Following their magnificent society wedding, they traveled to Europe, where Martha was inspired by Versailles and the gardens of Italy. She spent the next 60 years perfecting her gardens, importing trees, shrubs, and flowers, and carefully recording her garden work in her diary. Construction began on Rosedown in November 1834. 6 months later, the lavish home was completed at a total cost of just over $13,000.
Martha had 30 guests for her housewarming party. She served chicken salad, many kind of meats, roast mutton, pig, turkeys, ducks, brandy, champagne, wine, many cakes, candied fruits.
The cost of the party? $224, including $60 for the musicians. What a soiree.
Cotton had many retainers in the Old South, and the planting aristocracy was first and foremost in his retinue. They were the people who, by and large, had held land grants from the Spanish. They were people who were Anglo-Americans, and they prospered. And by 1830, they were ready to build houses that showed their prosperity.
In 1835, Rosedown Plantation produced more than 170,000 pounds of cotton, which sold for 13 to 18.5 cents per pound, or approximately $30,000. Owning 3 additional plantations, Daniel Turnbull was one of the wealthiest men in plantation aristocracy. Southern lifestyles died with the Confederacy. The people who had lived in luxurious homes, owned multitude of slaves, dined on fine food and wines, traveled abroad, and enjoyed elaborate soirees were reduced to poverty overnight. I tell you, what a fabulous part of our Louisiana history, and of course our Southern history, and there was so much controversy over this particular area of Louisiana, the toe of the boot of our state, which is where this area kind of begins and moves into from Baton Rouge on all the way toward the Mississippi Gulf Coast. So this area changed hands so many times, but it was the English who eventually brought stability to that area, and also a fabulous lifestyle that was like no other here in Louisiana. So we have a lot to thank the English for, not only for the culture, but for the food as well. A lot of the great foods that they brought. Y'all, I have to introduce a couple of guests in the kitchen today. First of all, Mary Thompson. Mary is the second great-granddaughter of the builder of that beautiful plantation house, and Mary Thompson is right here with us. Thank you so much for being here. I know we have a lot of great stories to talk about. Richard Scott, also the co-author of a book y'all did together on the plantation and on plantation cooking, where we got a lot of our dishes from. And Anne Butler, the wonderful owner of Butler-Greenwood Plantation. So nice to have you here with us today. You brought me a cake.
I did bring you a cake.
And we're going to eat it. Fact is, I'm going to put some bourbon on it in a minute here.
Plenty of it.
The music today in the kitchen by one of my favorite groups of all times. I just love Smithfield Fair, y'all. And of course I have Dudley, why don't you introduce everybody to us today?
Thanks, John, for having us. Again, nearly 20 years working together. It's always been a treat. As long as you keep feeding us, we're happy. On the end is my wife, Jan, on accordion, my nephew, Frank, on drum, my brother Bob on bass, and of course I'm Dudley Smith.
Well, it's going to be a fantastic day, y'all. Good food, good music, good friends. What else do you need? Now, when we talk about English cuisine, I can think about the roast, the great lamb roast, and you heard all of the dishes from the opening party of Rosedown. But at the same time, I like to think of some of the wonderful fruit desserts, the trifles. I like to think of the casseroles. I like to think of the cakes, the desserts that they brought with them. Always, for some reason, pickle with a little bit extra wine, sherry, or bourbon. But anyway, we'll find out about that. And I wanted to do one of those for you today. I'm beginning with dessert. Can you imagine that? Beginning with dessert. In fact, yeah, thank you. Hey, I know my crowd. I know my crowd. In fact, I'm beginning with Feliciana, an English pudding, a fruit pudding from the Felicianas, that part of Louisiana that y'all from. And this is what it looks like right here. In fact, I'm going to come back and decorate and put some nice things on it. But you know, the French did bread puddings. we did a lot of different bread puddings. We always had eggs and custard and sugar, and this, of course, is a sugar area of our country. But the English kind of kept it a little lighter, and of course they gave the French the English cream to put on top of it, right? They fattened up the French, y'all. So anyway, look at my platter here. I have some blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, raspberries. You could put this on anything, and I will today. But I'm gonna make a summer pudding. Now take a look at the mold I'm using. I'm just using a glass bowl. There were different types of trifling summer pudding molds that were being used, but this is the easiest thing to use in your home today. And I've taken just some little loaves of French bread like this, very nice and soft bread. You can use just sliced bread as well. And I've started to layer this bowl with these slices because all we're doing is kind of covering the bowl with a nice layer of the bread, which will then be infused with all of this wonderful fruit. So let's take a look at what fruit's gonna go, what we're gonna do with the fruit. Into this pot here, I've already made some. I've taken the fruit and I've actually infuse this water. I'm going to begin with just plain water, about a gallon. Here, I'm going to bring it to a low boil. The English had to drown part of the misery over there as well, you know. So a little wine, a little champagne, a little spirit, a little bit of a colored, you could put a little a cherry wine, or you could put a little, I'm sure they did, a little apple wine. I'm using just like a grenadine here. A little lemon juice to put acidity to it. And then, of course, a little white wine. Oh yeah, a little white wine, sure. Well, the afternoons on those front porches were long, you know. A little bit honey right here, y'all. Just throw the honey in. And now, Mary, let me just ask you quickly. Your grandmother, your mother, Mamie Thompson, who I absolutely loved as the owner of Catawba. She was the granddaughter of Rosedown, and she actually had a lot of the recipes that they used, and all of those we talked about a minute ago. Where did y'all find them?
She did. Well, when Rosedown was sold out of the family, many just trunks and boxes of paper were brought to Catawba from Rosedown and stored in the attic.
Right.
And in sorting through and trying to clean the attic, I came across all of these original old recipes from Rosedown.
And y'all were able to then do a book and talk about them as well.
Yes.
Well, this is where one of the recipes came from, y'all. You see all of my fruit? You can just kind of put a little bit of everything in here, and of course, the more the merrier. So just, and you don't have to use just the ones I'm using. Of course, anything could go into it as well. Okay, so here's all the bread. Now I'm gonna put the fruit. I think you have the general idea. A lot of the wonderful fruit in here, you just pile it up, and then I come over to my pot that I've made already, and I just take the hot juice. The bread's gonna suck it up, right? The bread's gonna suck it all up, and you make sure you put a lot in there, and then you keep on coming. You talk about good. You just keep on coming with more layers of bread, more layers of fruit. You have the general idea, right? You can smell the champagne and the wine. Well, this is what it looks like when it's done right here. Looks really great. I'm going to put a little whipped cream on it the way Miss Mamie told me to do it. And then you could sprinkle a little bit mint on top of the pudding. And when you cut through it, which I'll do in just a minute, you're going to see all of that gorgeous fruit right in the middle of it. It's, you ought to just smell the liqueurs coming out of there, y'all. Well, not surprisingly, I have a lot of favorite English dishes. Creamed radishes, beet marmalades, fruit cakes, bourbon balls, whiskey cakes, just to name a few. The English are notorious for combining their liqueurs with their sweets. In fact, Anne Butler, a 7th generation owner of Butler-Greenwood Plantation, and her cousin Bob indulged me in one of their famous recipes. Y'all, I'm so lucky today to be in the dining room at Butler-Greenwood Plantation here in St. Francisville, Louisiana, and not only in the dining room, but with two of the family members who have had this house in their family for generations, Anne Butler and Bob Butler. Very nice to have y'all. Now, tell me a little bit about the home itself, or y'all association as family members here.
Well, the house dates from the 1790s, and it's always been in the same family. Bob and I are double first cousins. His mother and my mother were sisters, and they were from Rosedown Plantation. They were miners, and our fathers were brothers. and grew up in this area.
Two brothers marrying two sisters.
Yes.
Now you mentioned Rosedown Plantation. That was another one of the great plantation families along Bayou Lafourche.
That's right, down in Terrebonne Parish.
Yeah, and they had a great historical lineage as well, right?
Absolutely. Wonderful cooks and cookbooks.
Yeah.
And the same here.
Now this is English territory here. This is all of the great English countryside of Louisiana, and your family really tight English ties as well?
They absolutely were. They all came from England and Scotland and Ireland and had settled in Pennsylvania and then came down in the 1790s here and brought with them very English traditions, which you see in the cooking and the architecture
Right.
and the culture.
Now, Bob, did you and your family spend a lot of time in this house?
We spent a considerable amount of time here. I can remember my grandmother from a very early age, and it was a real rural setting, and we hunted and fished a lot in this area, and there was always good food in this house.
Always something happening
Something.
here. Now, I'm here to learn about this fabulous pecan whiskey cake, and there seems to be whiskey in everything that's cooked
There
here.
was.
Everything was well preserved.
Right.
The bourbon pies and the bourbon balls and the bourbon cakes.
The bourbon sauce on
Plenty of
everything.
eggnog, hard sauce.
Now, this cake is the recipe. Where does it come from?
It's an old recipe, and it's not quite as compact or as hard as a lot of fruit cakes are. It's a
Right.
little fluffier. It's a nice fruit cake. They always had a number of different fruitcake recipes
Different
here.
styles
Some
here.
light ones and dark ones.
Well, I want to talk about the ingredients here because it's very simple. We have flour, pecan, sugar, and cinnamon. And of course, the sugar as well as the eggs here would be creamed together in a bowl as a typical cake begins with the butter. So those butter, eggs, and sugar cream. Then the flour would be added to it at some point. And then the other ingredients are very typical of that day. Ground nutmeg, dates,
Yes.
a little bit raisins or some type of fruit like that. And of course, always candied fruit like candied cherries
Plenty
here.
of that.
I have green. You probably
You
use
could use
red
those.
here. I can,
Yes.
I can see. Now, Bob, you were telling me a story that this cake would be baked around November or so, right?
Normally the cake would be baked right around Thanksgiving, and once the cake was baked, they would put cheesecloth on top of that. And
Right.
every day, different members of the family would add bourbon on top of it. And one of the real problems with doing that is nobody knew how much bourbon they actually put on the
or
cake.
cared.
Now, another interesting thing, this home has always been managed by women, right?
That's right.
That's right.
It was that bourbon that preserved them so well, probably.
Well, look, let's go ahead and taste the cake. And
Absolutely.
thank you all so much for sharing the
Thank you.
recipe with me today. This looks
Thank you,
absolutely
John.
wonderful.
Have a piece.
Oh my God, look how magnificent that is. And y'all, I have that wonderful cake right there. You see, look at it. It's right here, right in the corner right here. See it, huh? Oh, I tell you, I'm getting it ready for when I cut it in a minute here. Y'all, what great stories about the food. And Anne, you actually have a great cookbook from your members as well of Butler-Greenwood. Now, where did you get all of your recipes from?
I got them from everybody. I'm not a great cook, but there's some wonderful cooks in that area, and so I've got a lot of historic recipes as well as a lot of contemporary ones, a lot of old photographs and history.
Oh, I love going to your house. I tell you, her house is like being a kid in a candy store. Y'all, talking about kid in a candy store, you see the summer pudding I've cut into it. In fact, Corey, y'all come up. You grab one of these. Here you go, baby. Janet, you come grab one of these. Look, I put 2 forks on there. Don't put it on that beautiful white skirt you have there, Anne. A little summer pudding, and look, share it with Peter over there, okay? Y'all have that little summer pudding. Y'all, that's the way it would have been served, just nice and full of the wonderful juices, the pectin of the fruit, and of course a little bit of the champagne you're gonna taste in just a second. Okay, y'all, before I ask any more questions, let me hurry up here and put this cooking because, you know, time gets away from us. One of the great dishes at Rosedown, and I'm sure at Butler-Greenwood as well, would have been lamb, because it was the English who brought lamb. You heard mutton, older lamb and sheep would have come to the neighborhood as well. But anyway, lamb was not used that much throughout Louisiana cuisine except in the English countryside. Because of our temperature and because of the rain and everything else that we have here, lamb really like to kind of stay more in Vermont, you know, or they like to head on out for California. But I tell you what, we have some great lamb dishes here as well. What I'm doing here, I'm taking a rack of lamb and I've cut them into these little wonderful, what we call lamb lollipops right here. That's all they are. They're finger food, y'all. These are finger food. Now, what would I do with them? Well, I take a little flour here and then a little granulated garlic, a little pepper. Now, how much pepper and spice in English cooking have you seen in the recipes? We talked about that. Not much. Well, what was the predominant flavors? What did they like? Mostly herbs?
Bourbon.
Bourbon, yeah, I know. Like this, douse the cake again, Anne. Go ahead and hit it. Go ahead and hit it one more time for us, Anne. So, granulated garlic, pepper, salt, a little basil and thyme. Herbs were really a big part of the cooking or not? I know we talk about the English Shakespearean herb gardens and all of that. What about in St. Francisville?
They were used for preservatives. They were used for medicinal purposes,
right.
You know, but the food was not very spicy.
Right.
That's why they needed all the supplemental bourbon.
Now, Richard, you actually started the culinary program at Rosedown, didn't you?
That's right.
And is that how y'all got involved in the book?
That's exactly how we got involved. I knew that there was probably some original recipes somewhere around.
Right.
And Mary knew that, and we had talked, and when she got into that big trunk that came out of her attic, she invited me over one morning to go through it, and it was wonderful.
What a treasure, y'all. You wouldn't believe it. Well, I'm glad they didn't throw away this recipe because it's fantastic. Now, let me tell you what I'm doing. The lamb lollipop's very simple. I'm putting a little bit oil in the pot. I've already seasoned my flour with granulated garlic, pepper, salt. I put some herbs in it, not too much. And then I'm going to go into the skillet right here with the lamb. It cooks so fast too because naturally you want to eat lamb at about medium rare or so. You know, I like it no more than medium rare. And this would have been served at a soiree, just trays of the little lollipops of lamb passed around that people could grab them. I can see one of these wonderful Southern belles with her white gloves walking around with the lamb rack saying, the heck with these gloves. I'm going to eat the lamb, you know. But anyway, so this is very simply done. And of course, you could have spiced them up a little bit as well. So the plantation today, now I know you run the plantation every day. It's open for business, right?
Yes.
And you have a bed and breakfast there. Now Rosedown sold recently to the state of Louisiana. Tell us a little bit about what's happening at Rosedown.
Well, I think they are doing a real good job of trying to acquire things that had gotten away from Rosedown and getting a lot of the original things back in the house. So, you know, we're glad to see that it's in good hands now.
So little by little, the original things are coming back in. A couple of things a year happen at both of the houses. The pilgrimage happens there every year, so if people want to come and visit historic St. Francisville and see the homes and all of that, that happens, what, once?
There is something going on just about all the time. It's a year-round tourist destination now. There are 7 plantations and gardens that are open every day. A lot of wonderful bed and breakfasts and shops and restaurants.
Well, I think what's happened at St. Francisville, y'all, is what's happening around the state of Louisiana, opening our doors for tourism and opening our doors to show how the past has been preserved here. Not only our food, but our architecture, our landscape, and certainly the great cultures that made us who we are. So, y'all, this is cooking nicely. I want to come over here real fast because with the lamb, I would serve some butter beans or lima beans or little sweet English peas would be good with this. And of course the cake itself, I know you got a good shot of cake, but I'm not ready to eat it yet. Let me put a little bit more of that on there. I'm gonna cut. That's a fruit cake, y'all. It's absolutely wonderful. How would I finish this? If I wanted to move this up to a nice entree, now it's done. You could eat it around the back of the oak trees with the Spanish moss, or you can do that. You can put a little bit pork. See that? Woo. There you go. Just like that. Put a little bit. Woo. That's exactly the way the English did it, y'all. I tell you, it was dangerous over there. Well, y'all, time flies when you're enjoying great food and good conversation with friends in the kitchen. Thank you for stopping by as we continue to explore the unique food heritage of this state, of course, and cook up another great taste of Louisiana. We love you folks. We're eating English food. Woo.
To purchase the Encyclopedia of Cajun and Creole Cuisine by Chef John Folse, featuring more than 750 traditional recipes, a CD-ROM of the book, or a copy of the program featuring all 3 episodes of Today's Culture, call the number on your screen. Major underwriting for A Taste of Louisiana with Chef John Folse was provided by the Baton Rouge Convention and Visitors Bureau. In Baton Rouge, our past is your present. Baton Rouge, authentic Louisiana at every turn. And People's Drugstores, serving South Louisiana for generations. George and Shirley Picu are proud supporters of A Taste of Louisiana with Chef John Folse. And by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting. Our mission is to tell Louisiana's story to the world. And by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism.
Where you have this architecture, history, music,
And the bittersweet cry of the blues.
especially the blues.
There you go.
How about a dozen?
Red beans and rice.
We rolling, y'all.